Alright, your whole building design guide, part 3, threat and vulnerability assessment, introduction. All facilities with a certain level of risk associated with various threats. These risks are over the natural disasters, natural events, accidents, the intentional acts of the cause harm. Because of the nature of the threat facility, are responsible for the limited range of the risk of these threats extensible possible. The federal government has implemented the risk management process of the federal facility interagency security committee with the shares which state the risk of the function value of the threat of the consequent and vulnerability of the object of the risk management is create level of protection that mitigate the vulnerability threats of potential consequence, thereby reducing risk acceptable level of variety of mathematical models are available to calculate the risk and illustrate the impact and increase the protective measure of the risk equation. Facility owners, particular owners of the public facilities, should develop and implement security risk management methodology to adhere to the interagency security committee, as well as supporting the structural security need of the organization. Landlords who desire to lease spaces for the federal government agency should implement the interagency security committee standard for the design of new facilities and renovation of existing facilities. The description, threat assessment. Steps of the risk management process for threat assessment. The risk assessment considered full spectrum of the natural criminal terrorist accidental for given the functional facility and location. The interagency security committee, the standard alone, only address the man-made threats. Both interagency free to expand on the threats, so they consider the assessment should examine the support information and value of the relative likelihood of concurrence of the threat. For natural threats, or historical data of the concern of the frequency occurrence of the given natural disasters, such as tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, fires, or earthquakes, can be used to determine the credibility of the given threat. For criminal threats, criminal rates the surrounding area to provide with a good indicator of the typical criminal activity threat in the facility. With addition, with the type of the activity located in the facility may increase the target activityness in the eye of the aggressivity assessed with the activity located in the facility. It will also relate the directly likelihood of various types of accidents. For example, the facility will utilize the heavy industrial machinery will be at high risk of serious life-threatening job and related accidents, typical of the office buildings. For terrorist threats, attract within the facility, target with the primary consideration, addition with the type of the terrorist attack based on the potential adversary method of the attack most likely to successfully given the scenario. For example, the terrorist wishing to strike against the federal government more likely to attack the large federal buildings to attack the multi-tenant office building containing a large number of the commercial tenants and fewer governmental tenants. If the security of a large federal building makes a motion, mounting successful attacks would be difficult due to the terrorists may be diverted to nearby facility that may be not attractive from the occupancy perspective, but high probability of success due to the absence of the adequate security and general likelihood of the terrorist attacks when quantified statistically. And since terrorism is, by its very nature, random, the specific definitions are important to quantify level each threat. More specific the definition, the more consistent the assessment will be, especially assessments being performed a large number of assessors. For the example, the assessments are provided below. Define man-made. The aggressor who utilized the tactic known with the target of the facility, organization, the history of the type of the activity, area of the facility, of the known target of the specific threats of the be received, identified with the local law enforcement agency, natural from the nature or occur of the immediate vicinity with a frequent base. Credible man-made. The aggressor with the utilized the tactic known with the large type of the facility, with its history, with the type of the activity, area of the facility, with the similar facilities have the been target with previously non-specific threat had been received, identified with the law enforcement agency. The natural events of the nature occur immediately vicinity periodically once every 10 years. Potential man-made. The aggressor who would utilize the tactic they are known with the target of the facility, with the history with this type of the activity with the facility have not been a target of the natural events of the nature of the region with a sporadic basis. Minimal man-made. No aggressor who utilize the tactic with identified facility. There is no history for the type of the activity at the facility with the neighboring area. Naturally, there is no history of the type of the event in the area. Vulnerability assessment. On the plausible threats with identified vulnerability assessment must perform the vulnerability assessment, consider the potential impact of the loss of a successful attack as well with the vulnerable facility location of the attack impact loss of the degree of the mission of the agency impaired with a successful attack of the given threat. Key component of vulnerability assessment is properly defined with a rating for the impact loss of the vulnerability. The definition may be greatly related to facility. For example, the one moment of the time of the mission capabilities impaired with the importance of the impact loss of the facility being assessed for the air route traffic control tower amount of time, a few minutes, maybe seriously impact loss of the security office of the social security office downtime of a few minutes would be minor sample. So the definition impact the loss of the provided below, but the definition organization generates revenue serving the public. Alright, devastating. The facility damage was contaminated beyond the habitual Use most items in the nest with loss of the destroy the damage beyond the repair restoration. The number of the visitors office facilities organization may be reduced up to 75% limited prior period of time. Severe, the facility is partially damaged, contaminated. The example that included the partial structure breach resulting in weather, water, smoke, impact, fire damage, or some areas. Some items as if the facility are damaged beyond repair. The facility remains mostly intact with the entire facility, but must be closed for a period up to 2 weeks, and portion of the facility may be even extended the period of time more than 1 month. Some of the assets may need to be removed from the remote location, protect the environmental damage. Number of the visitors to this other facility organization reduced up to 50% limited period of time. Noticeable the facility is temporarily closed, unable to operate, but continue with an interruption with more than 1 day. Limited of the number of assets to be damaged. The majority of the facility is not affected. The number of the visitors to this and other facilities in the organization may be reduced up to 25% of the period of time. Minor facility experience with no significant impact of the operation downtime is less than 4 hours. Therefore, there's no loss of major assets. Vulnerability is defined with a combination attractiveness facility to target the level of deterrence and defense provided by the existing countermeasure. Target attractiveness is measured by the asset of the facility, with the eyes of the aggressor, influence of the function, and or symbolic importance of the facility. Sample for the definition of the vulnerability ratings are as follows. Very high profile facility provide very active target with a potential adversity with the level of deterrence of the defense provided with existing countermeasure adequate. High profile regional facility, moderate profile of the national facility provide with an attractive target level determined the defense provided with existing countermeasures inadequate. Moderate profile facility not well known outside local area of the region provides potential target and level of the deterrence and the defense provided with existing countermeasure marginal adequate. Low, there's not a high profile facility provides possible target level of deterrence of the defense providing existing countermeasures is adequate. So the vulnerability asset must include the detail of the potential impact loss of the exposure to the chemical, biological attack. Professional with a specific training with experience here is required to perform the detailed analysis of the sample, the type of the output, with the conduct that generated the detail of the exposure to the analysis shown in Figure 2. Graphic represents the potential damage of the facility with the exposure attacks of the building owner. With the quickly interpreted with the result of the analysis of the distance, similar representation could be even to depict response upgrade facility same explosive threat to allow the building owner to interpret the potential benefit that can be achieved and implement various structural upgrade of the building frame, wall, roof, and or windows. Result of the blast assessment depicted in Figure 2 were glazing only. C. Risk analysis. A combination of the impact with the losing rate with the vulnerability rating to be evaluated the potential risk of facility with the given threat with the sample of risk nature with the depicted in the table of 1. High risk designated in red cells, moderate risk in the yellow cells, and low risk in the green cells. Matrix identifying level of minimum threat, vulnerability impact, level of potential threat, impact and loss, credibility, impact and loss, define impact, define threat and impact and loss. Table 2, interpreting risk assessment, a very high risk of an unacceptable immediate measure that must be taken to reduce, mitigate, and hazard. High risk is unacceptable measure to reduce the risk. Mitigation hazard should be implemented as soon as possible. Immediate risk may be acceptable over short time. Plans to reduce risk, mitigate hazards should include the future plans and budget. Low, the risk acceptable to measure future reduce risk, mitigate heavily implemented in conjunction with the other risk of the mitigation upgrades. Alright, upgrade recommendations based on defining with the risk and now with the next step of the profit identified with the countermeasure upgrade with the various lowest level of risk of the organization minimum standard countermeasure for the given facility level that not currently present. These countermeasures should be automatically included with the upgrade recommendation. Additional countermeasure upgrade with the organization recommended with the minimum standard should be recommended necessary to address specific threat associated unexpected risk identified in the facility with the estimated cost of implementing the recommended countermeasure usually provided the estimated installation operation cost for the recommended countermeasure also usually provided all operating costs are customarily estimated on per year basis. Alright, E. Re-evaluation risk. The implementation recommended security with the structural upgrade with the show have the positive effect of the impact loss of the and or vulnerability rating of each of the threat. Final step of the process to re-evaluate the two ratings each of the threat light with the recommended upgrades using an exterior explosive threat with experience is an example of installation windows of the retrofit security window for laminated glass accessory will prevent the explosive attack with the occurring if should reduce the impact of the loss or injury caused by higher hazardous flying glass. Therefore, impact loss rating with explosive threats would improve the vulnerability rating would stay the same. Second example, the introduction of the explosive the interior with the facility, the potential upgrade with that might be the X-ray packaging screen with the average package entering the facility. The potential impact loss internal detonation remains the same. Vulnerability attack lessened because of the package containing explosives should be detected prior to entering the facility. Further reduced risk, structural hardening, packaging, screening areas could be also reduced. Potential impact loss reduction, either impact the loss or rating, vulnerability rating, post effective of the reduction in overall risk. F. Summary. The overall threat and vulnerability risk analysis methodology is summarized with the following chart. Repeat upgrade revolution process risk reduced or accepted. Identify asset mission to protect. Determine and rate possible threat scenarios. Rate and impact loss for vulnerability. Each threat scenario utilize in threat impact loss vulnerability damage rating determination level of risk. Upgrades address unacceptable risk. Reevaluate impact or loss of vulnerability based on upgrade recommendation. Proceed the upgraded developed budget to implement with as soon as funds are available. Repeat security risk assessment based on the provided interagency security council standards. Alright, application threat and vulnerability assessment risk analysis can be applied by the facility organization. The federal government has been using varying the type of assessment analyzing for many years. Federal security risk management. Basically, the process described on the paper, the federal security risk management is currently being used by several federal agencies as well as commercial business assets to their facility. Software is available to assist the performing threat vulnerability assessment risk analysis. The software tool associated with the implementation of the federal security risk management. FSR manager of the tool is designed to use security personnel to allow the user to input a description of the facility, including the number of people occupying the facility, tenant representative, the contracting needs during assessment information gathered, the contact, the construction details, input existing threat or measure input threats and rating, assign impact loss for each of the threat impact, put countermeasures, upgrade alternative, and their associated costs. Federal security risk management manager uses above the input of the calculated vulnerability each of the threat based on the existing countermeasure, determining risk level of each of the threat, classify the risk level, the high, medium, or low. Check the existing countermeasure against the list of the Interagency Security Council Committee recommendation countermeasure for the given facility security level, specific threat. User provided a list of the potential countermeasure upgrades that user may choose the recommended for the implementation. Reevaluate the vulnerability associated risk level of each of the threat based on the countermeasure upgrade recommendations. Use all the input information content. Complete the template report in the Microsoft Word more, and then the ARA.com. Relevant codes, Interagency Security Committee, Integrated Man-Made Hazard Mitigation Plan, Risk Assessment, how to mitigate potential terrorist attacks against buildings, Design Threat Risk Classification, Resolve Federal Protective Design Requirements, UFC, DoD Minimum Anti-Terrorism Standard Buildings, and Federal Agency, FEMA, Federal Protective Services, Design Analysis, Federal Security Risk Manager, Rampart, and Organization Association, American Society Industrial Security, International Associated Professional Security Constellation. Publications: Are Your Tenants Safe? The BOMA Guides to Security Emergency Planning, BIMPS 05, Preventing Structure from Collapsing, Multi-Hazard Delegation Risk Assessment, Risk Assessment. Alright, Unified Facility Criteria, or ICF, Security Design Criteria Overview Comparison, Introduction. Facility located in the United States of the federal government currently utilize the two primary standards: Risk Management Facility, Risk Management Process Federal Facility Interagency Security Council Committee Standard, November 2007-16. Unified Security DoD Minimum Anti-Terrorism Standard Buildings. Description: Interagency Security MIDI standards was developed with the Federal Civilian Government Agency. The UFC was developed with the Department of Defense facility. The following experts for the two standards clarified the intended application. Pursuant to the authority of the Interagency Security Committee contained in Executive Order 1297 of 7 October 1995, Interagency Security Committee is amended by the Executive Order 13286, March 5, 2003. Whose management process of federal facility Interagency Security Committee standards applicable to buildings within the United States occupied with the federal employee with non-military activities, include existing buildings, new construction, major modernization facility, owns and purchased, leasing the standalone facilities, federal capital campuses where appropriate, individual facilities, federal campus, special use of facilities. The Unified Facility Criteria System prescribed the Military Standard 3007 and provides planning, the design, construction, sustainment, restoration, modernization criteria that apply with the Military Department of Defense Agency, the DoD field activity according to the USD AT&L Memorandum of date 29th of May 2002. UFC was due with the DoD project works with the other customers where appropriate. All construction in the United States of the government and state of the status forces agreements of the host nation funded with the construction agreements. Some instances of the bilateral infrastructure agreement and therefore acquisition team must be compliant with the most stringent UFC, SOFA, HNFA, and BIA applicable. However, in December 2012, the Department of Security of the Defense released a memorandum which stated that the security standards established for the Department of Homeland Security Interagency Security Committee with the risk management process of the federal facility shall apply to all installations, leased space managed by DoD and all DoD occupied space buildings owned or operated by the U.S. General Services Administration. Alright, an overview of International Security Committee with the International Security Committee Standard Risk Management Profit. The federal facility classifies the facility with the facility security level, the facility security level. Each facility resolve the security requirements if it depends upon the 5 factors: mission criticality, symbolism, facility population, facility size, and threat. The initial interagency security committee statement provides example of the definition of the various levels of each of the 5 factors. The interagency security committee associated with the federal facility security level with the level of risk baseline with level of protection. Rating the 5 categories to determine the federal facility security level associated with the level of risk and potential, and allows the interagency security level Security Committee the requirements to be somewhat risk-based. Further, risk-based adjustment can be made with a threat-by-threat basis. Appendix B, countermeasure for official use only. Interagency Standard Committee for the standard identified security measures to be applied with the baseline of the level of protection. They are considered the guidance. Remember, the implementation specific the countermeasure should be decided. Risk assessment for each of the undesirable events, threats, addressed with the standard arrive at the customized level of protection. Extends to the level list of countermeasure plan provided by the interagency Standard Committee. The standards are presented with the following 7 categories: site, including site, perimeter, site access, exterior area, the assets of the parking structure, includes structural hardening, facade, windows, building system, facility entrance, including employee, visitor, pedestrian entrance that exists, loading docks, and other plannings opening for the building envelope. Interiors include spacing and security, specifically interior spaces. Security system include intrusion detection, access control, surveillance, camera systems. Security operation administration include planning, security, force operation management, decision making, mail handling, and receiving. Cyber including cyber security requirements, building access control system. Alright, overview of the Unified Facility Criteria Standard. The latest version of UFC Standard 401001. Shift the previous approach applying with a mitigation measure limited tied to the specific design basic explosive threat. Minimum threat independent design requirement to be done. Identify the threat level of protection has been determined in accordance with the UFC 402001. However, the UFC 402001 planning manual takes risk-based approach to the ISC RMP to determine the minimum of the requirement of the UFC 401001 are adequate. For additional mitigation measures, the appropriate evaluation process becomes a critical step of the planning with the project development phases in section UFC 401001. The logo provides guidance of various levels of protection based on risk assessment. Facilities identify the threats may increase the level of protection adequate mitigate the threats. Therefore, UFC does not are part of the security engineering unified facility criteria documents that cover the minimum standards planning preliminary design with the detailed design security demand anti-terrorism document series designed to be subsequent to diverse audience of facility development and project throughout the design cycle. In addition, standards planning of the designing unified facility criteria mentioned above, there is a series with additional UFC with providing detailed design guidance for developing final designs based on the preliminary design developed in UFC 402002. These support manuals specialized disciplines specified design guidance. Some address specific tactics such as the direct fire, weapon force entry, airborne contamination. Others address limited aspect of the design, resistance, progressive collapse, the design proportion buildings such as mail rooms. So others address details of the design, specifically pressure protective measures such as vehicle barrier defense, security, and engineering support manuals as intended to be with the design team during the development of the final design packages. The major design strategies associated with UFC 40101 are prevent building collapse, minimize hazard flying debris, provide effective building layout, limit airborne contamination, provide mass notification. Application of the most recent 2018 change of the UFC 40101 risk-based design approach for the 2 standard the most closely affected in line with the UFC 402001 established design base threat appropriate level of protection risk methodology guidance slightly different with the overall goal of the focusing security design to mitigate the identified risk of the same. International Interagency Security Council, the RMP, focused on the broad range of the diverse threats, but the UFC is more focused on explosive, chemical, biological, radiological threats. Previous versions of the UFC were very prescriptive in regards to structural design, explosive threat mitigation. Now the UFC approaches more likely the Interagency Security Council with the general guidance focused on the mitigation intent, leaving determination countermeasure adequacy with the identified risk for the security professionals. While both standards are required for the performance of the security risk and the prior of the mitigation of the design and implementation of the step that is ignored in favor of applying the baseline measure for the outline each of the document-based facility characteristics. The approach to negatives approach negates the purpose for each of the same that make the risk-based decision, optimize the design and allocate resource storage measuring will address identified resources. Relevant codes, Interagency Security Council, and Military Standard 3007, the practice of the DoD, Unified Facility Criteria, Unified Facility State Guideline Specs, Risk Management Process, Federal Agency, Interagency Security Committee Command. Unified Facility Design Analysis, Hardened Structure, Conventional Weapon Effects, DoD Minimum Anti-Terror and Standard Building, Security Engineering Facility Planning Manual, FA, Security Engineering Concept Design, Security Engineering Final Design and Operation Maintenance Mass Notification System, Electronic Security System, Security Engineering Entry Control Facility Access Control Points, Design Building to Resist Progressive Collapse, Additional Resources, Department of Defense, U.S. Army Research Development Center, U.S. Army Corps Protective Design Center, Naval Facility Engineering Command, Air Force Civil Engineering Center, Department of Homeland Security Interagency Security Committee, General Service Administration, General Building Security Technology Program, Training, C. Security courses in whole building design guideline continuing education. And that completes the planning for secure buildings, whole building design course.